Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here. In today's video, we are going to be talking about what are, in my opinion, the top 5 decks of the new format. Because, in case you've been living under a rock, we got a ban list not long ago. In fact, it becomes legal like today. So, a lot of people are wondering, what do I play? What's gonna be good? What's still strong? What decks weren't hit or what decks will rise up? What should I be preparing for at events, or what's a safe pick to play at an event? So this video is going to be my 5, the 5 decks I think will be strong, safe picks, picks to prepare for, what have you. So let's hop in. The first deck is Trickstars. I think that this is probably going to be the #1 deck at the start of this format. The reason why I think so is because, obviously, Trickstars did not get hit on this ban list at all. To maybe some people's dismay, we still have 3 Trickstar Reincarnation, Candina, Light Stage, it's all still here. Even Terraforming's at 3, and that's something that I kind of personally wanted to see get hit, but what can you do? So that could be a problem. I mean, Trickstars actually, before this ban list, were getting more tops than Pendulum Magicians were. Oftentimes it would be, of course, like Spiral taking a majority of top cuts at these events, but then the second most represented deck was oftentimes Trickstars, either tied with or slightly edging out Pendulum Magicians. And for good reason. Trickstars are a very small suite of monsters. It's almost like splashable, I would say. It's extremely consistent because you just need to see either Light Stage or Candina to get, your cards moving really fast. And what's so scary about Trickstars as well is the fact that it can burn you out. And sometimes it really doesn't matter what you draw or what you open with. If Trickstars get on the field and start burning you and start using Reincarnation, then that's it. That's your head. Your life points are still gonna go really quickly. And now this deck no longer has to worry about Spirals being in the picture, no longer has to really worry about Pendulum Magicians, although that might be more up in the air. So the only thing I guess standing in this deck's way would maybe be just the fact that it's a little bit easier to side deck against. Because since this deck, is more at the forefront of the meta, you can commit more side deck space to it. Hainwada, a card that maybe you didn't always want to have in your side deck for this deck, is now extremely relevant because it's like, well, what else am I going to be side decking for? Maybe Thunder King could be good for like stopping Candina, stopping Light Stage, stopping Terraforming, those types of cards. But I mean, also, if people are going to be paying half their life points for Solemn Judgment now, then maybe this deck is even better as a result. I don't know, but I do think that it's going to be the deck to look out for, at least for the next few weeks until the meta has some time to develop. The second most powerful deck, I think, is going to be ABCs. So similar to Trickstars, this deck did not get hit on the ban list. We still have Terraforming, we still have Union Hanger, Destrudo, and Ancient Fairy all, survived the purge. And so what that means is that this deck no longer has to contend with the decks that were drastically outclassing it before, and it's still just as consistent, just as strong. ABCs, there's really, not much new to say about it. It's a very simple, very effective strategy. Union Hanger makes it extremely consistent, and Destrudo makes that even more consistent. Dragon Ravine and searching and all that stuff. So really, all you have to worry about, I feel, for this deck is maybe Thunder King and Bottomless Trap Hole. I think that with Thunder King at 3, perhaps it will be played more, which does put a bit of a dent in the searching for all the field spells and the monsters themselves, and it can negate the summon of ABC Dragon Buster, so that's kind of a big deal, I would say, and that could hurt this deck if someone's able to go first and summon that. Bottomless Trap Hole can also hit these cards, and so for that reason, it's another bit of a threat to this deck. And like Trickstars, you can commit more side deck space to it. So that's actually pretty reassuring. It means that if you maybe couldn't fit your system downs in before, now it's actually a lot easier to do so. So I think that with all those things in mind, ABCs are going to be still very strong, still very prevalent, still very safe because a lot of people just happen to already have the deck, but maybe a little bit more vulnerable than before. The third deck for me is Paleozoics. So I think that Paleozoics are actually the one on this list that got helped most by the ban list. Trickstars and ABCs were not really changed, but Paleozoics actually gain access to new traps, namely Bottomless Trap Hole. And I guess we could say like Solemn Judgment and Torrential Tribute also count there too. So if you don't know really much about Paleozoics, they need traps to activate for their monsters to summon out. And to that end, they've always played, the Solemn Brigade, Floodgates like, Mistake, Unending Nightmare, whatever they can find, and then some trap cards that just like, Bottomless always was maybe played at 1, now it can be played at 3. There's always like Floodgate Trap Hole. You could use Compulse and different things like that. So now that they have more traps to sit behind, this is going to be an extremely troubling deck to face because, if you don't have ways to deal with the traps, they'll basically never let you actually make plays. And it's kind of scary to think that this deck can still make things like Totally Awesome and Miss Starboy to power it up and Proxy Dragon to protect it. I think that that's really going to be something that you have to answer. Hey Trunade could be a really strong pick against this deck, but I also feel like Denko Sekka and Thunder King Ryo are going to be really necessary cards this format just to stop this deck in particular, especially because this deck isn't a very expensive one to get. So, it's something that like ABCs and stuff, a lot of people already have. So yeah, I feel Paleozoics will likely be the 3rd most represented, maybe more, deck, and it's definitely one to look out for. The 4th deck, in my opinion, is actually gonna be Pendulum Hybrids. So not exactly Pendulum Magicians, but what's really important about that is that while Pendulum Magicians are heavily nerfed, they lost Double Iris Magician, they lost Performer Pal Skull Crobat Joker, so yes, their consistency is shot a bit, and they don't have as many powerful opening plays and ways to reliably see these cards. But this deck is still really consistent, and there are already people brewing deck lists for how this is going to adapt. Remember, Electromite still did just come out, and they still have access to Astrograph Sorcerer, Chronograph Sorcerer, Wavering Eyes, Pendulum Call, Duelist Alliance, all these cards still exist. And I say Pendulum Hybrids because we've seen people experimenting with different things like Odd Eyes, Zephyras, Performapals, all of these different Pendulum engines that can work really well. You've got things like Abyss Actor, Curtain Raiser, and the Dark Worm engine, and things like that that can just quickly make Electromite and get this deck's plays moving. And there's still the Pendulum just suite. You've still got things like Guiding Ariadne, you've still got things like Luster Pendulum. I feel that with all that in mind, oh, and let's not forget Pendulum Paradox just released. Not sure how relevant that is to the conversation right now, but it could be. And with all that in mind, I just think that some kind of Pendulum hybrid deck will still rise up and still be consistent, especially early on in the format. I feel that Pendulum Magicians they were hit hard, but not that hard. I think that they'll be more prevalent than Spirals will at these events. And the final deck, in my opinion, is going to be True Dracos. Now, this is the point in the list where it definitely does get a bit open to interpretation. This could be many different things. For me personally, I think True Draco, having not really gotten hit by the ban list, means that it's in a better position now than it was. It always had a problem with just getting outsped and overwhelmed by Spirals and being out, I guess, toolbox and out consistency'd by Pendulum Magicians. That's not so much the case anymore. You still got Majesty Maiden, you've still got Masterpiece, you've still got Dragonic Diagram, and without like Terraform or anything like that being hit, I think this deck is actually in a pretty good position to just be a strong meta contender. And, it also has its own share of hybrids. There are people that run it with Wind Witches, or Spell Books, or Invoked. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do with this deck, and when you factor that all in, I think it's gonna be a really, really strong one. And one other cool thing, in fact, about Masterpiece is that it can be trap immune. So even though we're going to be seeing more Torrential Tributes, more Bottomless Trap Holes, this is a deck that can resist those cards pretty easily by just making a trap immune Masterpiece. And even, Majesty Maiden and Ignis Heat, if they get, say, Bottomless Trap Hold, can still actually chain their effects and still, get a profit off of being summoned. And not every deck can really say the same. So I feel like this deck is in a really good spot, and it could be a strong contender. Now that is the point of the video where I hand it off to you. There are a lot of decks really right now that can compete, and I feel like not everyone's gonna agree perfectly with this list. So let me know down in the comments below, what decks do you think are gonna be the top decks of the format? In fact, I'm going to be making a video of the 5 picks I have for sleeper decks of the new format, things that will maybe rise up from the ashes and just be really good that people aren't paying enough attention to. There's quite a few, and I'm sure you can guess what some of them are. And maybe that'll be influenced by the comments in this video, we'll see. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys liked it. This is gonna be a really wild, crazy format, and I'm super excited. We've got, you know, things like regionals coming up already next weekend. We're gonna be at YCS Atlanta. Be sure to meet us there, by the way. If you're there, it's gonna be fun. And yeah, so thumbs if you like the video, subs if you love the video. Remember to leave the comment and subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! I'll see you guys in the next one.